The din of conversation might save us yet. At my congregation, we're expecting some protesters, and we're getting the word out to our congregants and staff, don't engage. Now, that's certainly good advice for dealing with belligerent protesters. And I'm heartened that we have to say it, because it isn't human nature not to engage, even in our time of extreme division. Literary critic Terry Eagleton once said, quote, "The din of conversation is as much meaning as we shall ever have." The din of conversation is as much meaning as we shall ever have, end quote. I like that. On first glance, it appears to be bleak. Human conversation is all the meaning there is. But imagine what human conversation has given us. Often we light on the cliche of lonely geniuses, but genius is seldom lonely. For example, Shakespeare and his Globe Theatre was not the only show in London town. Shakespeare's London had 27 public theater venues. Synergy, it was not silence. It was a din of conversation. Or reflect that there were more than 50 British bands in the so-called British invasion of the early 1960s. The Beatles weren't alone. Synergy and a din of conversation. Imagine the din of conversation in Baghdad in the late 700s when an institution called the House of Wisdom opened its doors. It was an attempt to gather all the wisdom of the world. Looked at from this perspective, from the view of what gets created in that crucible of human sharing, Eagleton's phrase isn't quite so bleak. The din of conversation is as much meaning as we shall ever have. Why would we ever want more than human conversation? Truths change. Facts get reinterpreted. But human conversation is our constant, is our wise search for wisdom rather than certainty. Both democracy and consensus are born in that din of human conversation. In early English, the term conversation meant intimacy with others. It also meant sexual intercourse. Only later did the term take on its present meaning of talking. Yet even now the word calls up visions of connection. Let's just say there's something intimate about human conversation. Isn't it interesting that the world's great religions, however, don't make all that much of conversation? Thou shalt join in deep conversation is not a thing in religions. Too often it's about sit and get. Philosophy has done a little bit better. The dialogues of Socrates stand as foundational in the Western tradition. Still, the Western way of religion and philosophy is mansplaining, white-splaining, and lots of splaining about God and the economy. Explaining or expounding are not conversing. Those do not connect us as companions on our mutual journey. They don't lead to synergy. Look around. See all the sides and the dogmas and the battle lines? That's the result of all that splaining going on. It might be nice to do some listening. But the dominant U.S. culture is going to have to do some learning first. Who from? Well, as theologian Dolores S. Williams phrases it, quote, "No survival strategy is more developed among many black religious women than the art of connecting," end quote. An art learned in necessity. Now, that sounds like a valuable lesson for European and Euro-American cultures, and maybe the entire world. We humans have resources, and we can come to conversation. As I've mentioned before, the essence of humanism is that people matter more than ideas. Now, what does that mean? It means connecting and listening. Conversation rather than confrontation. What a concept! But it might save us yet. After all, what do we have to lose? Let's hear it for that din of conversation.